Right, let's dive straight into the retail madness, shall we? Picture this, it's May 2025 and Walmart, America's beloved behemoth of bargains, drops a bombshell. They announced they'd be raising prices. Yes, Walmart, the place where you can buy a paddling pool, a pint of milk, and questionable life choices all under one colossal roof. We're talking about price hikes on a whole smorgasbord of goods, from patio furniture to bananas and even car seats. This decision sent a shiver down the collective spine of the American consumer. Walmart is not just any retailer, it's retailer for a massive swath of the population. The implications are huge, affecting family budgets from coast to coast. Now let's unpack these tariffs, because understanding them is key to understanding why your next trip to Walmart might feel like daylight robbery. In April 2025, the Trump administration decided to crank up the economic pressure, slapping tariffs on most goods imported from China. Rates soared as high as 145%. To put that in perspective, that's like ordering a pizza, and then being told the delivery fee is more than the pizza itself. On May 12, 2025, a deal temporarily reduced these sky-high tariffs on Chinese goods to 30% for a 90-day period. However, some analysts quickly pointed out that this 30% was often of a pre-existing 10% baseline tariff. President Trump also dangled the threat that these tariffs could become substantially higher if a more permanent trade agreement with China wasn't reached. This uncertainty makes it incredibly difficult for businesses like Walmart to plan and budget. Trump also imposed significant tariffs on goods imported from other key manufacturing hubs, such as Vietnam and India. It's a global game of whack-a-mole, but instead of a soft mallet, it's a sledgehammer labeled economic nationalism. So with these rather punchy tariffs firmly in place, what did this actually mean for the average Walmart shopper? It meant that the era of always low prices was facing a serious challenge. Walmart confirmed in May 2025 that prices on a variety of goods would indeed be heading north. The price increases weren't selective, targeting only luxury or non-essential items. Instead, both discretionary items and basic necessities would be affected. The price hikes reportedly began to creep in during late April 2025, picked up speed in May, and were expected to have a significant impact by June and July. How did Donald Trump react to Walmart's announcement that his policies were leading to higher prices for American consumers? Did he reflect on the economic consequences? Of course not. Instead, around May 17, 2025, he took to his favorite megaphone, Truth Social, to offer Walmart some unsolicited business advice. His sage counsel: Walmart should simply eat the tariffs. Trump pointed to Walmart's billions of dollars in profits from 2024 as a reason why they should just absorb these new multi-billion-dollar costs. It was less of a suggestion, and more of a thinly veiled threat. This demand for a multi-billion-dollar corporation to simply swallow a massive, government-imposed cost increase was seen by many commentators as an abuse of power. Trump's assertion that Walmart could just absorb these costs without any impact demonstrates a rather unique understanding of how businesses operate. Expecting them to magically absorb billions in new taxes without it affecting their pricing strategy or their financial health is optimistic at best, and economically illiterate at worst. Let's delve into Walmart's financial situation, because President Trump seemed to think they had bottomless pockets. For the first quarter of 2025, Walmart reported revenues of $165.61 billion. This represented a 2.5% rise year-on-year, though it was slightly below what analysts had expected. However, revenue is one thing, profit is quite another. Walmart's net income for that same first quarter actually declined, falling from $5.10 billion in the previous year to $4.45 billion. Their net profit margins are actually quite tight, especially in the grocery sector. For Q1 2025, Walmart's gross profit margin was 24.2%. More tellingly, their net profit margin was just 2.75%. This context is vital. It shows that there's very limited capacity to absorb significant additional costs without raising prices. They operate on a model of high volume and low margins, so when the cost of goods goes up substantially due to tariffs, they have a stark choice: absorb the cost or pass it on to the consumer. Understanding where Walmart gets its mountains of merchandise is crucial to grasping just how badly these tariffs could bite. Approximately two-thirds of Walmart's merchandise is actually sourced in the United States. However, that still leaves a very large one-third of their products that are imported. And that's where the tariff trouble really kicks in. The primary countries from which Walmart imports goods for its U.S. stores include Canada, Mexico, India, Vietnam, and China. In 2024 alone, it's estimated that Walmart imported around $49 billion worth of goods from China. To its credit, Walmart hasn't had its head in the sand regarding its reliance on China. Over the past few years, the company has been actively working to diversify its supply chain. This strategic shift has involved sourcing more products from countries like Vietnam and India. However, as we've seen, Mr. Trump's tariff enthusiasm wasn't limited to China. Vietnam and India also found themselves on the receiving end of significant duties. This heavy reliance on imported goods, particularly from countries targeted by tariffs, puts Walmart in an incredibly difficult position. Faced with this tariff turmoil and a rather direct presidential suggestion to just absorb billions in costs, how did Walmart's leadership respond? They adopted a tone of cautious realism. Walmart CEO Doug McMillon stated quite clearly that higher tariffs would inevitably lead to higher prices for consumers. McMillon also expressed a hope for further tariff reductions. He was reportedly part of a group of major retail CEOs who met with President Trump to discuss the tariff situation. Walmart's chief financial officer, John David Rainey, confirmed that certain imported items would indeed see price increases. Rainey made it clear that passing on at least some of these increased costs was unavoidable. In terms of strategy, Walmart wasn't just sitting back and waiting for prices to rise. They were reportedly attempting to absorb some of the costs themselves, though the extent of this was limited by those slim profit margins. They were also actively engaging with their suppliers, asking them to explore using alternative materials to try and mitigate some of the tariff-related cost increases. This whole saga with Walmart and the Trump tariffs isn't just an isolated incident affecting one giant retailer. When a company the size of Walmart says it has to raise prices due to tariffs, you can bet other companies are feeling the same squeeze. Reports indicated that other major players like Mattel, Stanley Black & Decker, and Procter & Gamble were also raising prices in response to the tariff environment. Tariffs, by their very nature, increase the cost of doing business for any company that relies on imported goods or components. These price hikes were also emerging at a time of broader economic concern, with many Americans reportedly already reducing their spending due to inflation or other financial pressures. Adding tariff-induced price increases on top of that risks dampening consumer demand further. Another interesting side effect was the reported surge in shipping costs. As companies scrambled to import goods before tariffs took full effect, it created a bottleneck in logistics. This increased demand for shipping services pushed up shipping prices, adding yet another layer of cost for businesses to contend with. Furthermore, President Trump's statements suggest a fundamental misunderstanding of how tariffs actually work. Tariffs are taxes paid by the importing companies in the United States, not by the exporting countries. And it's not just manufactured goods. Tariffs were also noted to be affecting the cost of groceries like avocados, coffee, and roses imported from countries like Costa Rica, Peru, and Colombia. So where does this leave us? Walmart, a titan of retail, finds itself navigating a treacherous path, caught between the Scylla of Trump's tariffs and the Charybdis of maintaining its always low prices promised to millions of American shoppers. The company's decision to raise prices is a direct and predictable consequence of significant new taxes being slapped on a substantial portion of its imported goods. It's a stark illustration that trade wars, despite the political rhetoric, are not fought cost-free, and often it's the end consumer who foots a large part of the bill. The demands from former President Trump for Walmart to simply absorb these multi-billion-dollar costs fly in the face of basic economic reality. Walmart's leadership has been put in an unenviable position, trying to mitigate costs through supplier negotiations and material substitutions, but ultimately acknowledging that some price increases are simply unavoidable. The broader economic implications are considerable, potentially leading to reduced consumer spending, which is a cornerstone of the United States economy. Ultimately, the Walmart-Trump tariff tangle serves as a potent reminder that economic policies have real-world consequences that extend far beyond the negotiating table or the campaign trail.